Are you an American who dreams of living in Europe or Asia? Teaching abroad is one of the easiest ways to get a visa to live and work abroad. I'm Jamie, an American who has been teaching abroad since 2010, and in this video I'll share everything you need to know about teaching abroad as an American, including qualifications, visas, how to prepare to teach abroad, and what to expect. Make sure to grab a pen and paper because you'll definitely want to take some notes. Teaching abroad as an American, eligibility, and visas. There are many different ways to teach abroad, and each teach abroad pathway comes with its own set of eligibility criteria. I'll break down some of the most common ways for Americans to teach abroad, but if you need any extra help, then you can fill out my survey, which is linked down below, and I'll email you back. The first way to teach abroad as an American is through a language assistant program. These programs place native speakers in local classrooms to assist teachers with their lessons. Depending on the program, you may be working with small groups of students and pulling them out to work on vocabulary or grammar, or you might be planning and teaching the entire lesson on your own. Some of the most popular Teach Abroad programs for Americans include the North American Language and Cultural Assistance Program in Spain, TAPIF in France, JET in Japan, and EPIC in Korea. If accepted into one of these programs, your student or work visa will be sponsored by the program, which makes language assistant programs an easy and straightforward way to teach abroad for Americans. Each program has slightly different requirements, but most language assistant programs hire native English-speaking Americans with a bachelor's degree. If you'd like to learn more about language assistant programs, including the specific requirements for each program, then you can watch this video next. If you don't have a bachelor's degree or you just don't want to work as a language assistant, another way to teach abroad as an American is to get a TEFL certificate. A TEFL certificate is earned after completing a TEFL course. During this course, you'll learn all about teaching abroad or online, including lesson planning, teaching methods, and more. If you don't have a TEFL certificate yet, then I'll link some down below that I recommend. Teachers with TEFL certificates typically teach English in private language schools, businesses, or as freelance teachers abroad. Some countries have specific English teaching visas for Americans and other English-speaking countries. To get one of these visas, you typically need to have your visa sponsored by a school in the foreign country. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, there will be some countries where you cannot teach because of the visa. If you don't have a degree but you still want to teach abroad as an American, then I recommend looking for teach abroad jobs in Latin America because most countries in Latin America will accept an American teacher with a TEFL certificate. Teaching abroad as an American, how to prepare to teach abroad. Whether you decide to teach abroad with a language assistant program or in private schools, I still recommend getting a TEFL certificate before you go abroad. This is because the more prepared you are to teach, the better your experience teaching abroad will be. The first time I taught abroad, I was still in college when I went to Costa Rica to teach, and I didn't have my TEFL certificate yet. When I arrived, I didn't have many materials to use in my classes, no one was telling me what to do, and I had students who had all different levels, but they were in the same class. I feel like if I had done my TEFL certificate before teaching in Costa Rica, I would have struggled less and enjoyed teaching more. Adapting to a new country, a new culture, and a new climate is challenging enough without feeling like you are completely lost at work. If you want to feel comfortable in the classroom abroad, then I recommend doing 3 things. Number 1, get your TEFL certificate. Number 2, volunteer as an English teacher or tutor in your community before going abroad so you can get some teaching experience. And number 3, reading books about teaching English. You can check out the Teach Abroad favorites section of my Amazon shop linked below for books I recommend for English teachers. And I've used all these books and they've helped me a lot. Teaching abroad as an American, what to expect. If you've never taught abroad or lived in another country before, it can be scary and difficult to imagine what it's going to be like. Trust me, when I boarded my flight to Costa Rica the very first time, I was terrified. I had nobody that I knew in that country, and I just didn't even know what to expect. Each time I've taught abroad, it's gotten easier and easier. So here are some of my tips for what to expect when teaching abroad as an American and tricks for making your life easier once you get abroad. First of all, knowing the language is important. While you won't be using the language when teaching, it is helpful to at least know the basics when living in another country. The more you know of the language, the more comfortable you'll feel. If you want to learn a new language, then teaching abroad is a great way to do this. I recommend living with locals and joining as many clubs and groups as you can. The second thing is that American holidays will feel strange, and it can be difficult being away from home while teaching abroad, especially during the holidays because they are such an important part of American culture. Halloween in Spain is just not the same as it is in the US, and some countries won't celebrate it at all. I recommend continuing to celebrate these holidays while abroad and inviting new friends to experience them. The biggest Thanksgiving meal I ever had was actually in Egypt. The third thing is that schools abroad will be different from American schools. Of course, it depends on the country, but you might find that the behavior management, learning and teaching styles, and even dress codes are very different than what you're used to. The best thing to do is to approach everything with an open mind, ask questions, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Cultural misunderstandings happen pretty much every day when living abroad, so just be ready. And lastly, you might fall in love with teaching abroad. There's nothing like the rush of visiting a new place for the first time, hearing a student speak in a complete sentence, or experiencing a new cultural tradition. People who make the leap to teach abroad usually end up loving it and pursuing it for a few years. If you are looking for more freedom, adventure, and travel in your life, then taking a year or two to teach abroad is a great way to do this. I hope I've inspired you to teach abroad as an American. I truly believe that everyone should try teaching abroad for at least a year because it's an experience that has changed my life and perspective on the world. For tips and tricks for teaching abroad and online, you can find me on Instagram at ESLTeacher365, and don't forget to check the description box of this video for helpful resources and free downloadable guides. If you are serious about teaching abroad and want to know exactly how to teach abroad step by step, I do open my course, the TEFL Teacher Roadmap, a few times a year. You can get on the waitlist by clicking the link down below. To learn about what to pack when teaching abroad, you can check out this video next. Happy teaching!